there is a about 19-second delay, so then it will come up. And अस्सलाम वालेकुम ख़वातीन हज़रात, मैं बुरहान खान आपकी खिदमत पे one-on-one with one of the best panel from Calgary, first time ever in the history of Calgary, Pakistani Canadian, and then we have a very professional, educated women with us today. और उसके लिए मैं उनका तारुफ कराता चलूंगा। पहले मैं आपसे बताता चलूं कि ये हमने ये सेशन why we are doing this. Last Wednesday, overseas Pakistani expatriate, a lady who grew up in France, and she, just a minute, let me just make this a privacy because a lot of people are complaining that it's going, okay, yeah. 1 second, yeah, that's good. So, वो खातून यहाँ पर पेरिस में पली बड़ी हैं, एजुकेशन उनकी यहाँ पे है, एंड शी गॉट मैरिड टू अ जेंटलमैन फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान, गुजरावाला, एंड दे हैव 3 किड्स। तो वो लाहौर शॉपिंग करने के लिए आई, और शॉपिंग करने के बाद, जैसा कि हमारे पाकिस्तानी इंडियन कल्चर में होता है कि इन लॉज की आपस में कोई प्रॉब्लम होती है, तो शी वेंट एंड विजिटेड हर मॉम, एंड व्हेन व्हाइल शी वाज विजिटिंग शी हैड अ डिनर। व्हेन द किड्स स्टार्टेड गोइंग टू स्लीप अराउंड मिडनाइट, शी सेड आई हैव टू लीव back to Gujranwala, which is about 50 minute to an hour drive. She has done that before because she was afraid that her husband might not like it, that I was spending too much time with my mother. So she hopped in the car, took 3 kids, and went through the motorway. Thodi dur gayi to she ran out of gas. So obviously she pulled over, and therefore the first person she called, who was the nearest of her cousin, and then she called him and he gave her the number to call Motorway, and they said he'll be there. And she called the motorway. Motorway said motorway police said this is out of our jurisdiction, so we will not come. Then her cousin called 15, which is a local police, and the police, before police can arrive, 2 these culprits came in. They, first of all, they threatened her with the pistol, the revolver, with the gun, to open the door. She would not open the door because she was afraid. She kept on calling and nobody would come for help. So therefore they broke the glass and dragged her out of the car, and whatever jewelry she had, they start taking that off. And then they saw one motorist was passing by, so they got afraid. So they start dragging her into the field. She was fighting. While she was fighting, the kids followed her, and then they put the kids with her and put the gun into kids' head, and they start demanding money, and they sexually raped her in front of her kids, 2 years old, 4 years old, and 6-year-old. And she stayed there. Police finally arrived after 2 hours, and then, whatever happened, I cannot imagine. We are very devastated. This shouldn't have happened. By coming on online today, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि हमको पाकिस्तान को बुरा कह रहे हैं या इस्लाम को बुरा कह रहे हैं। हम ये चाह रहे हैं कि इस तरह के वाकयात, ये कोई आइसोलेटेड इंसिडेंट तो है नहीं। इस तरह के वाकयात होते क्यों हैं? क्या वजह है? क्या हमारी तालीम में प्रॉब्लम है, या हम लोगों को एजुकेट नहीं कर पा रहे? और दूसरे नंबर पर, जब वो पुलिस वाले जो सीसीपीओ साहब है, हमारी ये डिमांड है जो ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानी है कि वो जो सीसीपीओ ने बयान दिया कि व्हाई द हेल वुड शी लीव इन द मिडल ऑफ द नाइट। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, अगर जा रही थी तो अपनी गाड़ी की गैस चेक कर लेती। अगर जाना ही था तो जीटी रोड से क्यों नहीं गई? अब मैं कुछ 40 साल हो गए गाड़ी चलाता हूँ, मैं भी जीटी रोड पे जाने से घबराता हूँ। आई रादर टेक अ मोटरवे देन जीटी रोड। तो उनका जो ये बयान आया, उससे हमें बड़ी दुख पहुंचा है। अब आप इमेजिन करें कि वो जो 3 बच्चे हैं, आप तीनों माएँ हैं, आप बेटियाँ हैं, बहनें हैं, बीवियाँ हैं, कि उन बच्चों के ऊपर जो स्कार पड़ा है, वो सारी जिंदगी के लिए एक, यानी कि ना, दिस इज नॉट गोना गो अवे। तो मैं इस प्रोग्राम का आगाज करता हूं। हमारे साथ जो हमारी बहन बैठी है, बेटी मेरी तो बेटियों की तरह ही है, सदफ आप अपना माइक जरा सॉरी सदफ आप अपना माइक अनम्यूट कर लें प्लीज हाँ जी तो Sadaf sir thank you very much for coming to Calgary. Sadaf is a practicing lawyer here in Calgary. She practices criminal and defense law. Sadaf आप ये बताइए being a mother, being a professional woman, what do you think about this?
Well, to be honest, I'm outraged, okay? And I'm not sure my listeners that prefer karenge ki main Urdu mein baat karu ya English, but I think I'll stick with English or I'll just go back and forth. But if there's a preference, please आप मुझे बता दें. मुझे actually इस बारे में इतना ज़्यादा पता नहीं था. मेरे काफ़ी like I have family here Canada में. तो मेरे nieces and nephews काफ़ी ज़्यादा social media पे हैं. So I actually learned through social media on Instagram, you know, stories के ऊपर. And I learned through मेरी एक niece, and she's about, I believe, 21 years of age. She's in university in Ottawa. So उसकी story पे, and then she kept posting about this, and you know, that's how I learned of it. And just I'm not somebody that, you know, मैं पाकिस्तान की news इतनी follow नहीं करती. Like हमारे घर में Jio play नहीं होता. You know, in a typical Pakistani household, you know, you're familiar with the news. So I didn't know anything about it. And then my husband actually, he told me about it. And then he said that, like, so if something like this happens, you know, we sit down, we talk about it, you know, at family dinner. So then I looked into it a bit more. And it's पाकिस्तान में मैं अभी recently गई थी about 2 साल पहले. And जब हम लोग travel कर रहे थे, think हम लोग इस्लामाबाद से लाहौर जा रहे थे. And then it was something to be proud of, you know, कि हमें मेरे जो I think my family member जो हमें लेके जा रहे थे, that they were so proud कि, like, you know, this is, you know, Pakistan की highway है, देखें, it's just like, you know, anything that you would see in Canada. Like, everybody's so proud of it. And so I kind of could visualize or contextualize कि कहाँ पे हो रहा है, right? So it doesn't matter अगर वो किसी remote जगह पे हुआ है या, like, you know, किसी, like, you know, public जहाँ पे public पास थी उधर हुआ है, right? It's just something wrong that has happened. I kind of could visualize or contextualize कि कहाँ पे हो रहा है, right? So
it's fine. Sorry, sir. It's my mistake. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, it's my fault.
So I was just outraged. I think as a woman, it doesn't matter वो पाकिस्तान में हुआ है, यहाँ पे हुआ है. There was a recent event. I think 2-3 साल गुजर गए होंगे इधर northeast quadrant में जहाँ पे most of, like, you know, our population lives. There was an incident here as well. Recent, I'd say it was about 2 years ago. It might be incorrect, but in that case,
you're talking about the Taradale incident about 14-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl.
हाँ जी. So क्या उसमें उस लड़की की गलती थी कि वो wait कर रही है bus stop पे, like, you know, to get on the bus. So it happens everywhere, unfortunately. This incident media में भी उठा हुआ है, but I'm glad कि उठा हुआ है क्योंकि लोग hopefully इससे learn करेंगे और हमारे मुल्क में थोड़ी बहुत तब्दीली आएगी when it comes to protection or state, you know, state का क्या role है protect, like, you know, बेशक वो औरत को करते हैं, मर्द को करते हैं, you know, we're equal citizens, so protection should be given both ways. So I wouldn't say it's an isolated incident. I'd say ये होता है, हर जगह पे होता है, and the fact that ये अगर मीडिया में है, that it's a good thing in a way कि हम इस चीज़ से learn कर रहे हैं, right? That we should educate ourselves. And शायद हम ये बात कर ना रहे होते, like, you know, on sexual activity or, like, you know, gang rape, but we are because this incident has happened, right? It doesn't make it right. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but I'm glad that we're talking about it. The issue that I take, and you can आप मुझे और questions पूछ सकते हैं, is the fact कि यहाँ पे कुछ और like, you know, discussion हो रही है कि, like, you know, औरत की गलती थी, but that's not the, you know, that's the problem, right? We shouldn't be talking about woman shaming. You're, like, you know, victim blaming, and that's where my problem.
And especially, and Sadaf, especially if it comes from the government official that you are there, you are being paid to protect.
Exactly, right.
Number two, हमारा जो it is very painful. It is very painful to me as a father, as a husband, as a brother. It is very painful for me that people who are supposed to protect you, they are questioning your motives. Then why did you take it?
No, but
let's say going back to Calgary, for God forbid this happens, what are the steps should be taken by the victim?
Well, you'd call 911 जैसे वो सूरत अंदर किया, right? She'd try to get help. right? उन्होंने आगे से कह दिया नहीं आप दूसरे बंदे को कॉल करो या दूसरे बंदे की responsibility है, you know, like this is a serious incident that has happened. बच्चे हैं वहाँ पे, you know, what if these people come back and they change their mind and now they shoot them? Like who knows? There was weapons involved, right? So police को कुछ करना चाहिए था right away. अगर इधर होता है तो then if it's immediate and it's happened, you have access to a phone, you call 911 right away. अगर ये कोई historic assault है या like you know घर के अंदर है and is somebody known to you, then until you are safe and you feel safe, that's when you report it. So there is a non-emergency number as well that also goes to Calgary Police Service. You should call there. And then if you do not feel comfortable, अगर आपको comfortable नहीं हो आप report करने में, to police, right? Authorities से काफी लोग डरते भी हैं हमारी community में, and that's just because of you know the mentality or where we grew up originally, right? That the police is not your friend. So if that is the case, or if you just simply don't feel comfortable, यहाँ पे you can report it to any healthcare professional. So you can go to your doctor, you know, they can help you. You can go to Sheldon Schumer Health Center. You can go there. And if there are children, you know, that are younger and किसी parent को like you know ऐसा कहते हैं, so there is something that there's a kit that has to be completed to preserve any evidence. So I would encourage that you either call 911 if you're able, right? अगर ये कोई like you know if there's like minors involved and the parents want to get help and again they don't feel comfortable contacting the police, you can contact your doctor. You can go to the doctor and the doctor can like you know वो सारे जो evidence, you know, they'll help you with gathering the evidence, and then later it doesn't mean कि आप 911 call करते हो police आपके घर में आ गया. You can report it, you can take an appointment, you know, आपकी local जो district है, and then you can go in and report it that way. You can also go to so like I said Sheldon Schumer or any other hospital. Calgary में specifically there is a Calgary Sexual Assault Response Team. Okay, you can call them as well, and I'm happy to provide its up numbers at the end. So you can choose अगर आप police को involve करना चाहते हो या नहीं. Eventually, if charges are laid after the investigation, then जो भी perpetrator I am accused of will be charged, right? But you have other ways. And the other thing is, if an assault happens, there is something called a limitation. So वो दूसरे law में apply होती है, but not in the context of sexual assault, because not in Canada में ये law काफी अरसे से बदला हुआ. I think in the 1980s where they changed it when Supreme Court तक ये case गया था, उसके बाद law बदला है. और उसमें क्या हुआ था कि एक औरत थी, she suffered from like abuse from one of, I believe, of somebody in position of authority. I believe in this case was the father, and she just, you know, you're not going to go report, or you don't like, you know, you're in that, you know, there's power dynamic in a home. So she didn't feel comfortable until she was 28 years of age. That's when she went and got some psychological help, and then tab tak, you know, se ye effect ho raha tha. So in that, after that case, the limitation tha wo in sexual assault, that was removed. I can hear you.
मैं आपसे एक बड़ा क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ कि जब perpetrator is being charged,
right,
then the evidences are being the victim is there. Is lot of these kind of cases go unreported. Okay?
Yeah.
They don't report it right on time. When you have somebody on authority, let's say you are working at a workplace and your boss or your co-worker is not very friendly and they are doing repeatedly sexual harassment, you don't report it because you're afraid to lose job. And in that case of you just mentioned in the 80s that the father was sexually abusing her daughter. So therefore, if you report your father, where are you going to live? So therefore you wait. So there is no limitation in Canada per se. You are saying that,
right?
We can report it anytime.
You can report at any time. I'm thinking कोई limitation नहीं है. So when you compare it to, for example, अगर property का कोई dispute है या contract dispute है, right? There is a period of limitation that you can report this in. Whereas with sexual assault, it affects everybody, and it's such a complex crime that it affects, you know, everybody very, like, you know, differently. Plus, there's a lot of power dynamic, right? अक्सर ये जो violence होता है, it's by somebody that's all, either in charge or that is in control or is in a power of authority, and you do not feel comfortable, stepping up or saying something, that there's this control element to it, and you do. So you're not really gonna.
Uncles, yeah, there is the reporting. I was talking to somebody who helps these, like the uncle comes to your home, and then they unwanted touching and all that without any consent, or cousins and these side, or friend, your brother's friend and all that things. So these are also an issue. What do you say about that?
I'd say हमें ये इस बारे में अपने बच्चों से बात करनी चाहिए, right? और मेरे I have nieces and nephews that are that range from like 21 to 2 years of age, right? My daughter is 2 years of age. So when they grow up, or as they grow up, I think as their parents, or as somebody in a position of authority, it's our job, that we should discuss what consent is, and it doesn't have to be so. I'm not saying that let's tell them what sex is, and we're not going there, but age appropriate discussion. So for example, what is good touching, what is bad touching, right?
Exactly.
And where can, if somebody makes you feel if they're touching you somewhere and you're not comfortable, you need to have that conversation first with your child. Doesn't matter if it's a boy or girl, they need to know, so then they can protect themselves, right? And if something has happened and they know that this is not right, and this is not how this person should touch me or make you feel like that, so then they're comfortable, aapne baat pehle unse ki hui hai, right? Probably in an appropriate manner, at age appropriate way, then they'll feel more comfortable at least coming and reporting to you, or at least telling you that mom or dad, this happened, is that normal, right? But agar hum ye baat karte hi nahi hai, and I'm not saying this is so common, it's an easy discussion, it's not, right? There may be resources out there where you can talk to somebody and say, okay, how do I go about addressing this topic, right? Or hamari community mein that is lacking. I can tell you, when I grew up, I didn't have such discussions with my parents. In school there is they teach you, you have an option to either you sit in the sexual ed class or not, right? So we don't grow up learning these things, and I'm not saying that we should, right? There's a lot of taboo, there's a lot of stigma. These are the things we just don't talk about. But you can have age appropriate conversations with your children, at least when they're in the teenager years, or when they're learning things in the school, right? Instead of them learning I'd say the Western way, or whatever they're learning out there, that we should have a discussion in the home, and we tell them and we sit them down. And it doesn't mean a father talks to the daughter, just whoever's mom probably would be the appropriate person to talk to, and she may not have the resources to talk to you about that. And these are the things that we should be talking about, right? How are we going to educate our women so they can protect the next generation of the next generation, pretty much. So the responsibility, I don't want to say comes and falls back again on the mom's shoulder, but we need to engage in these discussions. So I think us doing this is one way of doing that.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you and get those numbers. Now I'm going to bring Samia in this discussion. Samia, assalamu alaikum. Kya haal chal hai aapke? Please unmute your mic.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you very much for coming on such a short notice. I called everybody. Saima Chaudhary, she is a high school teacher for last 20 years, and she has one-on-one experience with the kids, boys and girls. Saima, आप अपनी input दें, जैसा कि सदफ ने बताया कि the education from a very early age, it is important. You're also a mother, you're also a sister and a wife, and obviously a daughter. What do you say about these things?
So I would say that often we want to blame women for crimes against them. And that's something that generally happens in all cultures. However, some cultures are better at talking about it, speaking about it. Pakistani culture, we definitely don't like talking about it. We want to blame women and kind of end the conversation there. I think that it's important for people to understand that when you're blaming women, for example, this lady who was, had this crime committed against her, such a brutal crime committed against her in front of her children. If a government official is saying to her that, why did you go out, and you're blaming her, basically what you're doing indirectly is you're accepting that in your society, men cannot be trusted and men are not good. But rather than saying that men cannot be trusted and men are not good, you just say to the women, don't go outside. You don't want to address the actual root cause of the problem. Like if you have cancer and, you know, if you have a headache due to that cancer and you just decide, oh, I'm just going to keep on taking Tylenol. Well, that's not going to cure that cancer. You're going to have to go vigorously against that cancer. And I would say that this type of thinking, it is a cancer in our societies, all of our societies. In Pakistan in particular, I would say that it's, you know, there is this idea that men, because they're powerful, because they can do something with that power, they can hurt you, they can kill you with that power, that is considered to be amazing. We seem to value that. We seem to put that above anything. But we don't want to value women and their expertise and their thoughts and respect that. There's a lack of education. There's a lack of education within our families. We don't want to speak about it. I'm really happy that we're here tonight, or in the case of Pakistan, here in the morning. I'm really happy that we're starting to speak about this because I think it's a sign, a healthy sign of a community when you're ready to speak about these very difficult conversations. They're not easy to have, but I would say that this goes as a plus point for any Pakistani community who is wanting to speak about this. It's not a bad thing. This shows that, you know, we are a vibrant culture, community of democracy that wants the best for our society. So alhamdulillah, I'm really happy that we are talking about this. We have a lot of work to do as society, and you know, men inherently, they believe that their family name will continue through their son, and that's power and that strength. So we need to somehow start having the conversation where women are just as valuable. And I'm talking about that value because I think that those basic beliefs, those foundational beliefs, are really the root causes for why any man would want to go and just have access to a woman's body and think that he could do that without any consequence, and that's okay. So there's something in wrong with your basic foundational thinking if that's what you believe. Like somewhere, somehow, your mother, your father, your family, your society has made you and allowed you to believe that that is okay, and that's not okay.
Just like what they say, boys will be boys.
Exactly, and we want to keep on blaming women, but what we're really saying when we blame women, we're really saying, and I think this will hurt a lot of people, but this is necessary for us to say, is we're saying that men are no good. You know, when we say to a woman, don't go outside, the underlying message is men are not to be trusted. They're no good. That's really painful. Like I have a son, you know, I don't want anybody to think that about my son. But at the end of the day, we all have those thoughts and we kind of continue with them, and we don't address it, and we don't, you know, nip it in the bud and say, this has to stop. We don't teach our sons, you cannot just have access to anybody's body. You can't touch that person. You can't go pull that girl's hair. You can't do that. We always tell our daughters how to behave, but there's not that same protocol and kind of that circle that's drawn around boys and say, this is the circle within you've got to stay. But we're willing to do that continuously with women. And if this was the right way to solve the problem would have been solved by now. And the problem hasn't been solved by now. We live our entire lives like this.
Yeah, you see, there is a double standard here. What we are, let's say, if my son has to, I have 3 sons and mashallah 3 daughters. If my son has to wear, you know, the sleeves and show his muscle and go on a motorbike and everything, it's okay. But I'm not saying that I do say that. You guys all know me. What kind of a father am I? But if my daughter puts on a makeup and start going out with the friends, with the dinners and all that, said, "ये क्या कर लिया? ये क्या बेहूदगी है? ये क्या बेहूदगी है?" Moderation, there is a limitation, cultural limitation. मगर ये है कि जब वो double standard देखती है, तो just like you said, you said a very good point that we are making men untrustworthy. Then the women. तो ये double standard को कैसे fix करें?
It has to be done through education, and we have to start teaching our sons that this is not okay, and it has to be done right from the get-go. We have to tell them, we always love telling women you have to cover, but we never want to remind men to lower their gaze. We don't tell men.
Bingo.
Whenever we want to listen to a khutbah, the khutbah will be, majority men, but it'll be about how women should dress. It'll be about how women should behave. It will be about how women should talk, what time they should wake up, or whatever the case is. It's a lot of policing of women. But if this policing of women worked, it would have already worked. It's not working. So we need to change the script. You don't keep on repeating a mistake and then expect different results. So if it's not working, change it. When I'm a teacher, when a student tells me, well, I've tried this 10 times, it didn't work. Okay, well, what about a different approach? And I think this is elementary. I don't think yes, it's complex, but at the end of the day, this is something that's not as actually complex as we think. We need to take a different approach by acknowledging. First of all, we don't even want to acknowledge it. A lot of times, if you had a conversation with a lot of people, they would say, well, you're just making this up. They would gaslight you, and they would say, it's just in your mind. We cannot cure the cancer until we diagnose that we actually have the cancer. We cannot we cannot cure ourselves of these horrible things that are happening in our society until we say, these are happening. It's bad.
Thank you, Saima. I really appreciate that. Please stay with us. We'll talk to the now. I'm going to bring Alina. Assalamu alaikum. Alina is also a teacher here in Chestermead. She teaches high school. Alina, could you please unmute your mic and welcome to the program? You have heard. आपने सारी बातें सुनी, आपने सदफ को सुना, कानूनी पहलू भी आपने सुने, आपने बड़ी हार्ट टचिंग कन्वर्सेशन समिया से बात की. प्रॉब्लम यही जो मुझे समझ में आ रही है आप दोनों पार्टिसिपेंट से बात करके, या मैं जब अपने बच्चों से बात करता हूं, तो प्रॉब्लम है ट्रेनिंग की, कि हम तालीम तो दे रहे हैं उनको मगर ट्रेनिंग नहीं दे रहे. जैसे सदफ ने भी कहा कि ये तो चाइल्डहुड से शुरू होगा तभी ये बात होगी, और जैसे सामिया ने कहा कि हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि हम अपनी बच्चियों को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं, मगर हम उनको मर्दों से मुतनफिर कर रहे हैं. लाइक वी आर टर्निंग देम अगेंस्ट द मेन, द मेन्स आर नॉट ट्रस्टवर्दी. हाउ कैन माय डॉटर कैन ट्रस्ट हर हस्बैंड व्हेन आई ट्रेन हर के ऐसे नहीं ऐसे, ऐसे नहीं ऐसे, तो वो तो बातें छुपाएगी. प्लीज.
I probably go with, if it's okay with you, Burhan, by English and Urdu, just to keep it easy for everybody, ताकि सबको समझने में भी थोड़ी आसानी हो. सबसे पहली बात जो आपने मुझे कही कि जी तालीम तो हम बहुत दे रहे हैं. Like we've got PhDs, we've got engineers, we've got doctors, we've got everybody, we've got like heavy degrees. हमारे वालिदैन जो हैं वो बहुत heavy amount invest करते हैं अपने बेटों की जिंदगी के लिए, कि जी इसने तो कमाना है और इसने तो करियर बनाना है and whatever. उस सारे टाइम में जो एक बाप कमा के अपने बेटे की लाइफ में इन्वेस्ट करता है, उसमें वो जो सबसे बड़ा लैकिंग, जो अभी साइमा ने भी कहा, सदफ ने भी कहा, उन्होंने कहा कि जी the most important thing that we're lacking at the moment is the time we give them to discipline them, tell them what the discipline of life is. हमने अपने बेटों को ये बताना ही छोड़ दिया है कि माँ की रिस्पेक्ट कैसे करनी है, कि बहन की रिस्पेक्ट कैसे करनी है, कि आपके इर्द गिर्द जो खवातीन मौजूद हैं आपकी फैमिली में, उनकी आपने इज्जत कैसे करनी है, उनका एहतराम कैसे करना है, जो कि इम्पोर्टेंट है, जो कि जरूरी है. बेटियों की, जैसे मैंने कहा कि बेटियों को हम पुलिस करते रहते हैं कि जी ये नहीं करना, ऐसे नहीं करना, वहां नहीं जाना, तमाम लिमिटेशंस हम उन पर लगा देते हैं. लेकिन दूसरी तरफ जो हमारा दूसरा जेंडर है, हम उसको फ्री छोड़ देते हैं कि आप जिस तरह मर्जी बिहेव करो, बिकॉज यू आर द लविंग बेबी and you're going to take the legacy of the family. लेकिन क्या वो legacy of the family उस वक्त लेके अच्छी तरीके से चल सकता है जब उसके किरदार में कमी होगी, जब उसकी नजर में खराबी होगी? तो क्या वो आपकी फैमिली की लेगेसी को प्रेजेंट कर सकेगा? क्या बुरहान खान का बेटा just per se कि बुरहान, if he is not par to your standards, कि जैसे आपके लाइफ के स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं कि भाई जिसमें मैं अपनी फैमिली को भी टाइम दे रहा हूँ, मैं अपनी एकेडमिक्स को भी टाइम दे रहा हूँ, मैं अपनी सोशल लाइफ को भी टाइम दे रहा हूँ और मैं एक अच्छा प्रोडक्टिव सिटीजन हूँ और एक हम्बल सिटीजन हूँ और दूसरे मेरे साथ बैठकर मेरी कंपनी में बैठ के उसको सेफ महसूस करते हैं, खुशी महसूस करते हैं और मुझे दोबारा मिलना चाहते हैं। तो क्या हम वाकई ऐसे बेटे रेज कर रहे हैं? एज अ मदर, एज अ फादर, एज अ ग्रैंडफादर, एज अ ग्रैंडमदर, क्या हम वो जॉब कर रहे हैं जो हम नहीं कर रहे? और यही हमारा सबसे बड़ा डिलेमा है एज as a Pakistani nation, as over honestly, I've been around most of the world. और जहां जहां मैं इस्लामिक स्टेट्स में गई हूँ वहां पे आपको हिजाब की जरूरत है, वहां आपको पर्दे की जरूरत है, वहां आपको निकाब की जरूरत है, लेकिन वहां पे भी मुझे ऐसे महसूस होता है कि उस निकाब में से भी इर्द गिर्द घूमने वाला मर्द आपको फाड़ के देख लेगा। उसमें उस नजर में वो हया नहीं है, वो एहतराम नहीं है और वो ही हमने सिखाना है, वो कहीं हम रास्ते में आते हुए कहीं भूल गए हैं। हमारी ही माओ ने या हमारे ही वालदैन ने हमारे वॉरियर्स पैदा किए हैं, हमारे लीडर्स पैदा किए हैं, हमारे ऐसे प्रॉफिट्स आए हैं, हमारे ऐसे स्कॉलर्स आए हैं, इंटेलेक्चुअल्स आए हैं, थिंक टैंक्स आए हैं, जिन्होंने ऐसे लोग पैदा किए हैं जो हमारी प्राइड थे, जो ऑनर थे। आर वी प्रोड्यूसिंग दोस किड्स? I would ask the ladies with me, are we producing those children? Are we producing those men? We're not. We're busy in social media. We're busy in modernizing our life. We're being busy being liberal. Okay, be busy. Do all those things, make money, but please pay attention to your children because they're the ones who are going to take your legacy. And what is your legacy if you're not teaching them anything? वो जो कुछ YouTube से सीखेंगे या जो कुछ Google पे टाइप इन करके सीखेंगे उससे तो कुछ भी वो लेके अपने साथ नहीं चलेंगे। तो जिंदगी तो
आप क्या
आपकी
क्या
लेगेसी
सजेस्ट क्या कर रही हैं अलीना कि हमें ये जो हम हमारे अंदर एक डीमन आ गया कि वो हम उसको निकाल नहीं पा रहे। अच्छा, ऐसे पहले नहीं था। जैसे कि मैं अभी किसी ने मुझे एक पोस्टर भेजा है कि जी अकेली औरत जिम्मेदारी है, मौका नहीं, यानी कि अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं है कि अगर कहीं पर आप अकेली औरत को देखते हैं कि वेल लेट्स अप्रोच। मैं ये सदब से बाद में कंसेंट के ऊपर बात करूंगा। तो इसका हल कहाँ से शुरू करें? जैसे हमने प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई कर ली, जैसे सामिया ने कहा हमने कैंसर को आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया। नाउ लेट्स सी कि अब हमें इसे कहाँ से शुरू करें और आर वी एक्चुअली लाइलाज हो गए? क्या अभी हमें देयर इज नो वे वी कैन फिक्स इट, या कैसे फिक्स करेंगे?
we're not at the end of the rope. मेरी अभी भी I'm very hopeful क्योंकि अभी तक जिंदगी में जो भी चीजें हमारे सामने हैं, we always have a way to find, if we're acknowledging it that there is a problem, like you are and the ladies with me are, we are acknowledging that there is a problem and there's a serious problem, and that is with parenting. बहुत serious problem. अगर हम खुद से as parents, वालिदैन की सूरत में अगर हम इस चीज को कबूल कर लें कि हमारी खता है और हमने अपने बच्चों को बार बार टोकना है इस बात पे, उनको हर चीज आप प्रोवाइड करें लेकिन उनको साथ साथ समझाएं भी कि दिस इज इम्पोर्टेंट। आपको ये पूरी लिबर्टी हासिल नहीं है कि आप किसी को भी जाके इन्वेड कर दो, किसी को भी जाके अटैक कर दो, however you want to be. I have worked with YMCA and I have worked with SIVA, and currently I'm working with SIVA as a volunteer. The things I have seen is, again, the problem is that men are not being taught what they're supposed to be. तो हमें इस चीज को अपने घर से, अपनी जात से सिखाना शुरू करना है, which is very important. अगर आपका बेटा टीनेजर भी है तब भी वो आपकी औलाद है, आपकी जॉब बनती है उसको रोकना, उसको समझाना। अगर आप उसको वॉच नहीं कर रहे हैं तो ये आपकी जॉब है, आपको उसको वॉच करना है। जब तक वो एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल एडल्ट नहीं बन जाता है, इट्स योर जॉब। पेरेंट की जॉब कभी खत्म नहीं होती है, जो कि मुझे अभी तक समझ आया। लाइक I'm a mom myself, but my mom is not off of my back. वो अभी भी मुझे कोई बात होती है, she holds me responsible for it. तो इसी तरह से we should hold our children responsible for it, that this is wrong, this is ethically wrong, this is socially wrong, you need to correct it. तो अगर हम अपने आप को इस जगह पे लाके खड़ा करें कि हमारे अंदर एक कमजोरी है, there is a flaw, there is something going wrong with our whole system, and each and every one of us as a parent are responsible for it, और हम उसको करेक्ट करना शुरू करें अपने घर से, अपने बच्चों से, अपने इर्द गिर्द के रिश्तेदारों से, अपने उन छोटे बच्चों से जिनसे हम कनेक्टेड हैं, तो one by one I think there is still hope. We can't just say that the hope is lost.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead. No, finish it up. Finish it up.
That's totally fine. But we still can do that. There is hope for us. We can't just say that hope is lost. Yes, we can do it, but we have to start from our own self, looking into our collar and extended it around us. और दूसरी बात मुझे याद आया, हम लोग एक टाइम होता था कि जब हम लोग कहीं फैमिली में कहीं जाते, there was something wrong, तो हमारी आंटीज भी होती, they would ask us, what are you doing? अब अगर हमारे बच्चों को कोई रोकता है, हमें बुरा लगता है. अगर कोई आंट या ग्रैंडमदर उसको रोकती है या उसको डिसिप्लिन करती है, हमें बुरा लगता है. हमें इस चीज को खत्म करना होगा. There shouldn't be an element of ego. If somebody is correcting your child to be disciplined and a better person, and that's an opportunity, with your egoistic attitude and your negative behavior, you're losing that opportunity, that golden opportunity for your child to be disciplined, to be a better person. So it just starts from you and it goes beyond that. So I do hope we as a society, as mothers, as sisters and wives and aunts, we can all let go of that ego and start correcting our children and let our loved ones correct them as well. And then hopefully we'll spread it out and have a better future, inshallah.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go turn back to Sadaf. Thank you very much. You know what? There was a time, मैं तबलीगी जमात में काफी time है इस बार. तो when we used to go out for वो गश्त करते हैं ना, तो they used to repeatedly say, lower your gaze, lower your gaze, lower your gaze. आंखें नीची करो. अच्छा, हमारे जो जैसे आप आंट और अंकल बताते हैं, तो जैसे बच्चा को ऐसे करके देख रहे हैं तो कहते हैं आंखें नीची करो अपनी. कोई औरत जा रही उसको देख रहे, आंखें नीची करो, आंखें नीची करो. अच्छा, अब मुझे आंखें नीची करने की जरूरत क्यों पड़ती है? क्योंकि मैं इस तरीके से देख रहा हूँ कि एक तो मैं उस औरत को अनकंफर्टेबल कर रहा हूँ, और दूसरे नंबर पे मेरा जो कैरेक्टर है दैट इज ऑल्सो रिफ्लेक्टिंग. अच्छा, उसमें एक जो चीज यहाँ वेस्ट में आती है कि नो मीन्स नो. सदफ से मेरा सवाल यह है कि व्हाट इज अ कंसेंट. और वो कहते हैं कि इफ द गर्ल सेज नो दैट मीन्स यस, इफ शी सेज मे बी दैट इज फॉर श्योर यस. What is a consent?
आप कोई भी Bollywood movie देख लें, you know, like even this is not just, you know, in our families, it's also inherent, you know, हमारा ये जो media है उसमें जो चीजें हम देखते हैं, you know, in any Bollywood movie, you know, if the woman says no, you know, the guy is going to do everything that he can, and in the end there is like, you know, happy couple. If that happens in real life, अगर आपको कोई, for example, जैसे मूवी में स्टॉक करते हैं या like, you know, जहाँ पे आप होते हो बंदे ने आ जाना, जहाँ पे आप like, you know, स्कूल से निकले तो उधर आ जाना, काम से निकले उधर आ जाना, like that's really that's like fearful. If somebody's stalking you that you don't know somebody, that's not right. But ये idea romanticized किया जाता है, you know, in movies or in like popular culture, and there is I think English make there's a song, and I think our teacher played it one time in my undergrad, and it was like, you know, I'm gonna stalk you until like, you know, I can find you. उसमें stalking का word पता नहीं 2 या 300 दफा use हुआ था, और वो use हुआ था at the end in a romantic way. So in some like, you know, ways we're telling our young women that it's okay. Like if somebody is following you, or if you think there's a creep, and like, you know, आपको लग रहा है as a woman that there's a creep out there, that person is a creep. Like, you know, accept that. And that, so that doesn't answer your question, but there is that idea right out there. So we need to first recognize, if you feel unsafe, you know, there's this book called The Gift of Fear. And I volunteered with the Victim Assistance Services unit with Calgary Police Service all through my undergraduate. So for I'd say like 3.5 years. तो वहाँ पे उसकी author आई थी, and then she gave us this book. And वो book जब मैंने पढ़ी थी तो उसकी like उसकी gist I guess ये थी कि अगर आपको कुछ चीज लग रही है गलत, या आपको कुछ फील हो रहा है, तो अगर आपकी कोई आपकी सेंस आपको कुछ बता रही है, तो उसको आप बिलीव करो, उसे डिसरिगार्ड ना करो. पर हमारी सोसाइटी में, हमारे कल्चर में बताया जाता है कि नहीं यू लाइक, यू नो, यू ट्राई टू से कि नहीं उसकी कोई जस्टिफिकेशन होगी. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, I think this book it's all based on like real actual like, you know, stats, like, you know, crime stats. And उसमें वो एक example देते हैं कि हाँ जी, अगर आप grocery का like, you know, bag पकड़े हुए और दरवाजा खोलने लगे और अचानक से कोई बंदा जो आपकी apartment building में आपने कभी भी नहीं देखा suddenly आके दरवाजा वो खोल देता है, you should question कौन है. Like, you know, अगर आपने उससे पहले नहीं देखा और आपकी कोई sixth sense आपको कुछ बता रही है, right? So first of all, we need to trust ourselves, कि अगर ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, there's a reason behind it, and that be strong enough to say no, दरवाजा तुम ना खोलो, मैं दरवाजा खुद खोल लेती हूँ, right? Because वो हो सकता है आपके पीछे, in that example, this person just walked right after her in her apartment, and then there was some sexual activity there. So that was just one of the examples. I think uska writer hai wo deta hai that jitne bhi usne jo bhi victims the and this was mostly really serious crimes of mostly like sexual assault or barely somebody escaping, murdering, being murdered. And uske baad the author's conclusion was that if you feel unsafe, aapki agar for example apne gaadi कहीं पार्क किया and आपको ऐसे लग रहा है कि आपके पीछे कोई आ रहा है, so then you get your phone out. वाकई में ऐसा होगा कि पीछे कुछ आ रहा है, like you're not, but I think as a society हम कहते हैं कि नहीं कुछ नहीं है, we condition each other to or everybody to say like this is okay, it's not okay. So there's things like that, and I can tell you that I've traveled, I'd say over 20 countries, 30 I'd say, and then that book helped me so many times. क्योंकि आप अपनी you trust your intuition. So with that, assault की आपने बोला no means no or consent की क्या definition, right? That was your question.
Consent.
So consent, there is no general definition. So in Canada में the criminal code section it's 270, and then मैं आपको उसकी सजा बता देती हूँ. Maximum punishment is 10 years in jail. Minimum अगर जो सरकारी वकील क्राउन होता है वो अगर elect करते हैं summary, so then उसकी punishment 18 महीने है. And that depends अगर जो victim है उसकी age पे dependent है, right? Obviously if it's somebody young, if there is other aggravating factors, so उसकी सजा बढ़ती है. If weapons were used, then it ranges. But in terms of a definition, there is no actual definition. Definition वो देखते हैं assault की definition देखते हैं in general. So it's not sexual assault, but assault. So assault की 3 general definitions हैं. One is that force किसी ने apply की directly or indirectly. By force I mean अगर आप मुझे ऐसे करते हो, right? And I don't know if you can see my hand. That अगर gesture अगर मुझे लगा है कि हाँ जी आप you actually meant to hurt me, right? And that was the force. That is considered to be an assault. It doesn't have to be आपने किसी को मारा है और उन्हें physical लगा है, but the fact that you had the power, right, or the power dynamic or the conversation is such that आप उधर खड़े हो and then you're like, I'm going to hit you, and then I genuinely feel that way, that that can constitute an assault. Okay. इसके अलावा, so anytime if somebody's threatening.
एक और सॉरी आपकी बात करती, एक और जो मुझे एज अ कम्युनिटी एडल्ट या सीनियर कह लें, काफी लोग काफी खवातीन कंफर्टेबल भी हैं कि दे एम अ फादर फिगर, कि आजकल ये जो सोशल मीडिया पे आता है कि जी वो अपने हस्बैंड को बताने से डर रही हैं या भाई को बताने से या फादर को, तो कॉल करती है कि जी फलां आदमी है मुझे रिपीटेडली फ्रेंड रिक्वेस्ट भेज रहा है, हालांकि मैंने उसको ब्लॉक कर दिया है मगर वो नई आईडी बनाकर आ जाता है, मुझे एसएमएस कर देता है. ये चीजें क्या ये सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट में आती है?
I wouldn't say not necessarily. What you can do in that instance is अगर आप सब कुछ try कर दिया आपने, you blocked them everywhere, then what I would do is I would start screenshotting this stuff and then save it, and then keep the evidence until अगर ये एक दफा हुआ है, 2 दफा हुआ है, 3 दफा हुआ है, it keeps happening. You screenshot it every time and you save it somehow, print it somewhere, put it somewhere.
Is this an evidence permissible in the court of law?
It would be. It would
email, SMSs and all that, they are permissible in the court of law?
I would be really hesitant as a lawyer. काफी ज़्यादा exceptions होती हैं, that we would have to apply. It's always fact specifics. But what I'm saying is कि अगर ऐसा हो रहा है and it's repeatedly happening, you keep a diary of it, write it somewhere, because जब आप police को eventually जाके report करोगे, या अगर आप police को नहीं भी जाते, there's something called an emergency protection order. अगर आपको इस बंदे की identity का पता है, right? You can go and get it on an ex parte basis. Ex parte basis means कि आपको उस बंदे को notice देने की जरूरत नहीं है. So in order for you to do that, you need to have some sort of again, ज़रूरी नहीं कि आपके पास proof हो और आपको court आपकी help नहीं करेगी, but it surely helps, especially अगर कोई बंदा stranger आपसे जानते नहीं हो. Otherwise, if you know the name of the person and you don't even need to have their address, police can go and serve them with the EPO. उसका होता है कि आप मुझे contact नहीं कर सकते direct or indirectly. So that's an avenue that's available. And अगर ऐसा कुछ है, please मुझे give my number out. I did some talk, I think on Roshni we talked about this quite a bit on Red FM, that there are so many options available, especially हम जहाँ पे रह रहे हैं, the protection, if you're willing to reach out for help, there's a lot of resources out there that are catered to you. And हमारी community में especially, there are so many good social activists, that often refer or talk to me about, somebody that's not willing to go to court and what can they do, right? So there is help available, but keep the evidence, and you don't have to talk to your father figure or your mother figure or somebody that will, equally criticize you. You can talk to a friend, you can talk to a teacher, you can talk to a nurse, right? Or call a lawyer. We always give consultation. You call the police. There is a non-emergency police line, and you just pick up and then tell them your situation. And there's so many resources out there that they're willing to help you with or provide to you. And this is at free cost.
And at the end of your conversation, I said, respect the women. Respect.
Respect, it's something easy to say, but then at the same time, we have to also be equipped with the resources, right? Agar kisi ne aapki respect nahi ki, I'm not saying kisi ne aapko is nazar se dekha and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the police, but you should know what your rights are, and then you shouldn't be afraid to exercise what your rights are, right? But then you need to be educated on what they are first. So dialogue like this helps.
Thank you very much, Sadaf. I know you have a little baby, and last night I woke you up. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. This will encourage a lot of people to talk about it. We will meet. If you have to go, you can go now. I'm going to turn into Samia. Samia and Sadaf, I am going to share your number and your firm's name. If anybody wants to talk to Sadaf privately or something, please do so. Do not be afraid. Help is available. Just like Sadaf said, there are a number of please.
I just wanted to say that thank you so much. I think this is a really important topic, and I think Samia and Alina also touched on it, that hope bilkul chala gaya. The fact that we're talking about this, that's the first step. So education or recognizing that there's a problem is always the first step, and this is the hardest step, right? And I would encourage, अक्सर हमारे पास resources नहीं होते हैं, tools नहीं होते हैं, आपको पता नहीं होता कि आप कौन सी जुबान use करके बच्चों को समझाएं, right? And it doesn't always have to be you. There are resources available out there. So if you don't feel comfortable, या आपको लगता है कि आप बच्चे से बात नहीं कर सकते, there are other educated people, social workers that have the appropriate tools or skills to address these concerns, right? And it doesn't have to happen जब कुछ गलत हो गया तो ये बात हो. This should be general education that we're teaching, and not only women, but I think mostly to boys, right? And to women, doesn't matter what gender they are, as they're growing up, this should be part of the education. And just आप पहले कह रहे थे कि हम बच्चों को स्कूल भेज रहे हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी में जा रहे हैं, so ये सारी चीजें वो पिकअप कर रहे हैं, right? पर अगर हम lack कर रहे हैं अपनी तरफ से, उन्हें education in our way, right, to give them basic tenets of Islam, then we're lacking, right? वो education उन्हें स्कूल में नहीं मिल रही. So I just want to thank you. I think this is a great initiative कि आप इस बारे में बात कर रहे हो, and thank you so much for considering me and having my input.
We shall definitely have you in the future. And if you want to leave, it's fine. I'm going to turn into Samia.
So thank you so much.
I know. Thank you very much. God bless you. And happy to see you. Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you. Samia, अब आपके पास मैं आ रहा हूँ यही क्वेश्चन लेकर कि जैसा कि अलीना ने ये बात शुरू की, हम सदफ से तो कानून के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, हम जो है कंसेंट के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, इसके बारे में कभी हम सोचते नहीं है, हरेसमेंट के बारे में बात कर रहे थे. You being a teacher, you being a mother, you being a wife, sister and a daughter, where shall we start as a Calgary community I can see a lot of people are watching from Pakistan and as well as, and this will be recorded and I'm going to send that to the government of Pakistan, जो उनके मीडिया कोऑर्डिनेटर है. आपके बाद हमारा सेशन उनके साथ भी है. Tell
Thank
me,
you.
where shall we start? Me being a parent, me being a Musliman. देखिए,
Very much.
मुसलमान होने का मतलब ये नहीं है. This comes with a lot of, there are a lot of privileges, but it comes with responsibility. राइट अगर आप हिजाब पहन रही हैं, मेरी 2 बेटियां हिजाब पहनती हैं, 2 नहीं पहनती, ठीक है. ये आपकी मर्जी है, ठीक है, अच्छा लगता है. अगर मेरी वाइफ हिजाब नहीं पहनती तो वो ठीक है, नो प्रॉब्लम. मगर ये है कि इट कम्स विद रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के हिजाब ना पहनना या पहनना. हमें एज अ पेरेंट मेरी ये गुजारिश होगी कि आप बताएं, यू बीइंग अ टीचर, कि you have been in this system over 20 years, you taught a lot of other, जो high school का student होता है, they are sometimes very rebellion, they are aggressive, क्योंकि puberty आई भी होती है और वो बड़ा aggressive behavior होता है. आप उसको कैसे tackle करती हैं और हमें क्या करना चाहिए as a parent?
Thank you very much. First of all, I just wanted to make one correction. My name, my pronunciation is Saima. So,
अच्छा, I'm sorry,
I just thought I would clarify just so that there's not confusion later on. And the question is an awesome question. Where should we start? And I will take something from Alina and from Sadaf. Sadaf, talked about intuition. We are hurting our children's intuition. We are born with the basic intuition about how can people touch us or the boundaries around us. But rather than listening to children or listening to our daughters, we start to culture them and police them in a different way. And then we basically break down their natural protective systems. We change them. We actually allow those walls to break down, and then we make them vulnerable when we teach them those wrong things. So we need to stop doing that. And one of the things that we do, we police girls when we say, oh, don't let somebody touch you here, don't do this, don't do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But are we going to counterbalance that to tell our sons, you are not allowed to touch anybody? I mean, imagine that these men in Pakistan, what they did, or men anywhere in the world, when they, rape a woman or whatever, how could you even dare to go even touch somebody's hand? Why are we not teaching that? And I'll go with what Alina said earlier. We are teaching our children amazing things. They're becoming doctors. They're becoming engineers. We can put people on the moon. There's talk about people going to Mars. Can't we tell them how to treat a woman? Are we not capable? We know physics, math, English, we know all this literature, but for some reason, at this place we fail. We are choosing to fail. This is not an accidental fail. This is a failure of our society by choice, because it is easier for us to blame girls and to blame women for all, just to dump it in the one place and say, this is all your fault, which is interesting because we tell women, you're not strong, you're not the strong gender, but yet we're burdening them with the greatest burden of all, which is so ironic because we're not burdening men in the way that we burden women, and we tell women that they are weak. So there has to be a balance there, that if you are telling your daughters or telling your children that, don't allow somebody to treat you like this, you also need to tell your sons, these are the boundaries. And I'm saying tell your sons because generally speaking, it is usually men that would go ahead and decide, they can cross those boundaries and rape a woman. That's the general statistics across the globe. So that was my suggestion, is where to start is right from the beginning, the get-go. We can't hear you, Burhan Saab.
Last message to Pakistani girls who are watching our show right now at 8 o'clock in the morning. What message, Saima, would you give them to Pakistani girls who are growing up?
That's a good question, Baran Saab, because then we burden them when we say, I would rather want to give the message to
Yeah, I'm
not
sorry. Let's
girls.
no, no. You're right.
That's my
Let's broader
broaden.
spectrum. That's kids, people who are high school student. What would you tell them?
I would say to our boys, I'm going to start there because they don't hear it enough. You need to keep your hands to yourself. You need to mind your own business. You need to, it's going to come back to you at some point and it's wrong and you know it's wrong. So stop doing that. Stop mistreating people. And um, this has to stop. You wouldn't want somebody to treat any of your family members like this. You wouldn't want somebody to misuse you or approach you in a way that's intimidating you or hurting you. So don't do that to anybody else just because you can. Power is not simply power that you can use it. Power is the ability to be powerful and yet you do not misuse it. Like we think about Allah and we think Allah is all powerful, but he doesn't misuse his power. And in the same way, men, if you say that you're powerful and you're the gender that can do all this, prove it by knowing how to use the powers that are bestowed on you. Stop abusing those powers. And for women, I would basically tell them, there are these boundaries that are placed in society. Where can you start? You can start by educating. We have to start with the kids. We can't change the world in one night, but we can do it one night at a time, one day at a time, and that should be our goal: is to achieve small goals, small steps, one day at a time.
Thank you so much, Emma. And then this is wonderful, brought tears in my eyes. And then I hope everybody can feel your message the way I am feeling, being a father, being a man, being a husband, and a brother to all of you. Alina, let's start
Great.
with you.
I just wanted to say thank you very
So,
much for inviting me here today. It was an absolute pleasure to be on this show and to meet Alina and Sadaf. I really appreciate it for this opportunity.
thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Alina, you have heard these two very bright ladies and their suggestions and everything. You are in working with the women who are in difficult times at the YWCA and YMCA and SIVA. What are your suggestions for us men as a family member, as a community member? And another thing, I would give you another burden that our religious leader, people who are addressing the sermon every Friday and addressing all these people. We are talking about, mashallah, Sahaba Karam and everything wonderful. But we never talk about the family life and how to treat your wife and how to treat your daughter and your neighbor's wife and your friend's wife and all these things. हाउ वुड यू आप कैसे उसको डिस्क्राइब करेंगी ताकि हम अपने आप को एक बेहतर शहरी एक बेहतर मुसलमान बना सके
Thank you very much, Mohammed, again. सबसे पहले जो important factor है वो ये है कि what we are teaching as a mother or as a teacher, what are we teaching our the next generation? क्या हम अपने बच्चों को बता रहे हैं, सिखा रहे हैं कि values क्या होती हैं? क्या हमारे just as a general question, I would ask, क्या हमारे current time के बच्चों को पता है कि खदीजा कौन थी? क्या उनको पता है आयशा कौन थी? क्या उनको पता है कि खौला बिन्त अल-अबाब अज़वार कौन थी? क्या उनको पता है कि नुसैबा बिन काब कौन थी? फातिमा अल-फहरी कौन थी जिन्होंने दुनिया की सबसे पहली यूनिवर्सिटी फाउंड की थी? She was the founder of the first university and she was a Muslim lady in 859. So the thing is that we are lacking knowledge. हमें दुनिया का तो पता है, हमें फैशन का तो पता है, हमें बॉलीवुड और हॉलीवुड का तो पता है, लेकिन क्या हमें अपनी लेगेसीज का पता है, अपनी रूट्स का पता है कि how strong and proud we can be if we link ourselves to our roots. ये तमाम ख़वातीन हमारी मुस्लिम ख़वातीन थी, ये वो माएँ थीं या वो लीडर्स थीं या वो फाउंडर्स थीं जिन्होंने अपनी ज़िंदगी इस्लाम के लिए और दुनिया के लिए डेडिकेट की, एंड नाउ आफ्टर सेंचुरीज पीपल स्टिल नो अबाउट देम. अब आई डोंट थिंक कि हमारे बच्चों को वो नॉलेज है. तो there's a point that we're lacking कि हम अपने बच्चों को वो नॉलेज ही नहीं दे पा रहे कि हम असल में हैं क्या, मुसलमान कौन है. हम ये तो बता देते हैं कि जी 2 गज की दाढ़ी होगी और टखनों से ऊंची शलवार होगी तो बहुत अच्छा मुसलमान है, ठीक है जी, और वो कंधे पे लाठी डाली हुई है और उस पे कपड़े डाले हुए हैं और जी वो जा रहे हैं आपकी वो क्या कहते हैं उसको जो
तबलीगी जमात।
रायबरेंट जाते हैं पाकिस्तान में, जो उनका पूरा एक तबलीगी जमात, आई एम सॉरी, सो वो तबलीगी जमात में जा रहे हैं और वो those men, they leave their families without any support for months and months and months and come back. Is that Islam? Is that the true picture of Islam? I would ask any sensible person. इसी तरह से हमारी जिंदगी में और बहुत सारे एलिमेंट्स आते हैं. हमारे जो स्कॉलर, जिस तरह अभी आपने कहा कि हमारे खतीब खुतबा देते हैं जुम्मा को कि जी इस तरह से एलिमेंट्स हैं और ये, और वी आर लैकिंग कि जी एक्चुअल में जो फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर है, जो सोशल स्ट्रक्चर है, उसकी एक्चुअल
And that is a powerful
वैल्यूज
stage. वो जो माइक है, जो मंबर रसूल है, वो पावरफुल स्टेज. वहां से जो बात करेंगे वो असर करेगी लोगों के ऊपर. तो मैंने बहुत यानी कि अगर मैंने कोई 10,000 खुतबे सुने तो उसमें एक दफा सुना होगा कि बीवी के हकूक क्या है, बेटी के हकूक क्या है. तो इसके ऊपर आप कुछ रोशनी डालिए कि वो उनके पास कितना बड़ा पावरफुल टूल है कि वो हमें एज अ मैन समझा सकते हैं कि जरूरी नहीं है कि तुम्हारी बीवी तुम्हारे लिए तुम जाओ तो फ्रेश चपाती बना कर दे, अगर नहीं देगी तो मैंने उसको चपेड़े मारनी शुरू कर देनी है. ये क्यों नहीं है? ये मैं साइमा आपसे
जो सबसे बड़ी बात जिस चीज पे मेरा बहुत ज्यादा इस कहते हैं ना, आई फील बर्डन्ड, इज दैट कि at the current stage in time, maybe Sama will agree with me or not, लेकिन जो faith हम practice कर रहे हैं, being a Pakistani nation or even in Pakistan, it's not the true former Pakistan. We are stigmatized with Hinduism in it. I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but it is because वहां पे होता है कि जी मर्द बहुत ज्यादा स्पेशल है, औरत को बहुत घटिया समझा जाता है, फिर जी औरत के ऊपर सारा बर्डन डाला जाता है. She bears the kids, she raises the kids, she does everything, and then she gets nothing out of it. और कल को जी जब वो उसका हस्बैंड मर जाता है तो उसके साथ उसकी जिंदगी डिस्ट्रॉयड हो जाती है. Whereas Islam gives women the right, whether she wants to live with the man or not, she can get khulla. She can have this beautiful life if she doesn't want to live with a man. She can educate herself. There were warriors. We had warriors. We had medicinal ladies. We had a tradeswoman, just like Mother Khadija. तो जब हमारे पास इतनी strong women की examples मौजूद हैं, legacy, it's beautiful, strong legacy, we should be proud about it. क्या हम उन चीजों को प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं अपनी लाइफ में? क्या हम अपने बच्चों को वो चीजें सिखा रहे हैं? जैसे आपने कहा कि मिंबर रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम पे अगर आप बैठते हैं और आप ये मैसेज ही, ये ऑनरेबल मैसेज ही कन्वे नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो यू आर नॉट बीइंग ऑनेस्ट विद योर जॉब. आप इस मेल पेट्रियार्चिक सोसाइटी को मजीद इन्फोर्स कर रहे हैं दैट यू कैन एक्सप्लॉइट एनीथिंग यू वांट. Because you got a mustache, you can do anything. This is not fair. Have you ever seen a woman going beyond the law, destroying anybody's life, going on putting her hands on anybody or doing such stuff? वो तो हर जगह दबी हुई है, वो तो हर जगह अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी संभाल रही है, बचाने की कोशिश करती है. वो जैसे अभी कुछ देर पहले मेरी किसी से बात हो रही थी, शी वाज लाइक कि इफ यू हैव अ वुमन, किसी बंदे की शादी हुई, इफ यू हैव अ वुमन कि जो lose, just simply saying that she doesn't have a good character, she's got some issues with herself, तो बंदा is like okay, dispose her off, I'm going to divorce her, I'm going to marry somebody new. लेकिन अगर औरत की किसी ऐसे बंदे से शादी हो जाती है who's got a very poor character, तो उसको कहते हैं तुम्हारा नसीब है, you have to bear it. Is that fair? Why? It is not fair. Islam tells you that you have the right to make a choice. If you don't want to live with the person, you can.
एक और बात मुझे यहाँ पे कहने की इजाजत दीजिए कि अमूमन देखने में ये आया है, मैं सुनता हूँ कि कोई बच्चा है वो बेचारा इतना अच्छा नहीं है या उसकी ट्रेनिंग ऐसी अच्छी नहीं. सैमा, ये आपसे भी सवाल है कि इसकी शादी कर देंगे ठीक हो जाएगा. क्यों साइमा, आप बताइए इसके बारे में, इसकी शादी करते ठीक हो जाएगा?
एक्चुअली थोड़ी सी कट ऑफ हो गई थी, आपका क्वेश्चन कट
अच्छा,
ऑफ हो
नहीं,
गया था।
मेरा 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 ये है कि एक और हमारे जो प्रॉब्लम है वो ये होती है कि हम ये कहते हैं कि बच्चा अगर कोई लड़का है, अगर खुदा ना खास्ता, ये मैं अपनी एंडिंग में बात करूंगा, खुदा ना खास्ता किसी औरत के साथ प्रॉब्लम है, पता चल जाता है कि उसका स्कूल में कॉलेज में किसी के साथ अफेयर था, वो इतना पॉपुलराइज होता है कि उसकी शादी होना नामुमकिन हो जाता है। अच्छा, ऑन दी अदर हैंड, एक बच्चा जो है उसके माँ बाप उससे तंग है, वो किसी ऐसी बुरी आदतों में पड़ गया है, वो मशवरा ये दिया जाता है कि आप इसकी शादी कर दें, ठीक हो जाएगा। साहिबा, आपको आवाज आ गई मेरी?
नो, अब आई आवाज, अब आई आवाज। आई डोंट थिंक दीज आर सॉल्यूशंस। ये बिल्कुल कतई तौर पे ऐसा कि काम हम लोगों को नहीं करने चाहिए। इट गोज बैक टू यू नो व्हाट अलीना वाज जस्ट सेइंग कि हम अपने एक्चुअली रिलीजन को हम जानते ही नहीं है, हम पढ़ते ही नहीं है। जो चीज़ें हम पढ़ना चाहते हैं उसको पढ़ लेते हैं, उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं। जो हमें नहीं पसंद उसको हम साइड पे कर लेते हैं। और जो हमें पता है, जो हम पसंद, लाइक इवन इफ वी आर यू नो practicing some things, we're not practicing them properly. हम उस चीज़ को परफेक्शन की तरफ हम लेके जाने की कोशिश नहीं करते, उसको बेहतरी के लिए हम लेके नहीं जाते। We need to do that. ये जो सॉल्यूशन है कि उनकी बस शादी कर दो, अगर कोई भी लड़का हो कि वो शादी होकर ठीक हो जाएगा। This is a made up philosophy. This is made up.
क्योंकि
It
then we,
doesn't
हम
make
तो उस
any
लड़की को
sense.
हम उस लड़की को वी आर पुटिंग ऑन अ पेडेस्टल, वी आर पुटिंग ऑन, वो कहते हैं ना कि ऑन अ
वही
क्रॉस,
वही बात
वो
है कि
बर्न।
हम औरत को रिस्पेक्ट नहीं करते, लेकिन हम सोचते हैं कि वो एक पूरी सोसाइटी को वो फिक्स करती है। We want to do both. We don't want to respect her, but we also want her to fix everything too, which is it doesn't make any sense. या तो आप उसको रिस्पेक्ट दो और आप कहो कि हाँ ये कर सकती है because she's capable, but आप साथ साथ उसको रिस्पेक्ट भी नहीं देना चाहते। We are full of ironies.
अभी अभी पिछले साल या इस साल पता नहीं कब डॉक्टर मौलाना तारिक जमील आए थे, और पता नहीं आप लोगों ने अटेंड किया कि नहीं, मैं गया था और मैंने वहां पे अटेंड किया। उनके जो खुतबे का पूरा जो जेस्ट थी वो मैरिड लाइफ, और उन्होंने बताया था कि रिस्पेक्ट कैसे होती है, कि नबी अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम जब हज़रत फातिमा ज़ोहरा रज़ी अल्लाह ताला अन्हा के घर जाते थे तो वो वहां पर यानी कि उनसे प्यार से मिलते थे, या वो जब आती थी तो वो उस वक्त तक बैठते नहीं थे जब तक आप बैठ नहीं जाती थी। और उन्होंने कितनी अच्छी अच्छी बातें की हैं। हम हर जगह पर तो नाम लेते हैं इस्लाम का, मगर यहाँ पर आकर क्यों लैग कर जाते हैं? अलीना, आप फरमाइए, मैं प्रोग्राम को जस्ट ओनली 2 मिनट्स लेफ्ट।
It's a beautiful concept that we just expressed. मसला ये है कि हम इस्लाम को, हमारी जो पेट्रियार्चल सोसाइटी है वो इस्लाम को सिर्फ अपने बेनिफिट के हिसाब से चलाती है। हमें वो चीज नहीं दी जाती कि हम उसको समझें कि ये इस्लाम, इट इज अ बैलेंस ऑफ बोथ द जेंडर्स, मेल एंड फीमेल. You cannot run a cart on one wheel. You have to have both the wheels running in good condition. अगर आप एक फीमेल को साथ लगा लेते हैं, यू वांट द कार्ट टू रन, और आप उसको कहें कि नहीं जी यू नॉट केपेबल, यू गॉट दिस, तो फिर तो वो कार ड्रैग होगी, ब्रेक डाउन हो जाएगी, वो कभी भी सस्टेन नहीं करेगी, वो रिलेशनशिप आपका चल ही नहीं सकता, खत्म हो जाएगा, डिस्ट्रॉयड हो जाएगा। हमारे यहाँ पे इन कंट्रीज में आके जो रिलेशनशिप अच्छे चलते हैं, और वो जी लोग कहते हैं जी ओ जी बीवी की तो बहुत सुनता है जी, वो जो बहुत सुनता है जी, माँ की तो सुनता ही नहीं है, या
लग गया।
Exactly. So when this statement comes, तो हमारे नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम was the example. He was rahmatul lil alamin. He was the leader of all the anbiya karam, but he was an equal gender participant in his household. आप जितनी भी अहादीस उठा के देख लें, he was a full participant in his household. He would help his wives. He will do whatever it needs to be in
He
the
used to
household.
sweep the floor.
Absolutely. If he can mend his clothes, mend his shoes, what
I was
else?
just gonna say, sew his clothes and do everything, but these things are not mentioned in the khutbahs. These are not. They don't mention these things. They only talk about it as being a woman activity, a female activity, and they don't want to talk about. You were mentioning, Alina, about the famous women in Islam. When have these famous women in Islam ever been discussed in a khutbah on Friday Jummah? I have I barely ever heard of this information being passed on. And it's unfortunate that that's why there is this violence against women,
Yes.
because we don't want to talk about women's elevated status. We want to make sure that we have an understanding in society that women are beneath, or a status below men, and we want to just keep that going. So we don't want to talk too much about what status women truly have.
मैं अभी थैंक यू
Allah
वेरी
will
मच।
save the women.
एट द एंड मैं आपसे बहुत आप लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। आप आई, आपने बड़ी दिलेरी दिखाई, इस बात का असर होगा इंशाल्लाह ताला। मुझे याद है कि जब मेरी शादी होने लगी तो मैं आई वाज वेरी यंग, आई वाज 21 इयर्स ऑफ एज। तो मेरे अब्बू और मेरी अम्मी शाम को, जिस दिन सुबह को मेरा निकाह था, तो उस दिन मुझे उन्होंने एक बात मेरी अम्मी ने समझाई। तो उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि तुम्हें लोग बहुत बातें करेंगे, तुम यंग हो, ये नहीं समझना लोग तुम्हें ये कहेंगे कि औरत पैर की जूती है, एक छोड़ी दूसरी बदल ली। तेरे बाप ने मुझे हमेशा सर का ताज समझा है, तो तुम उसको सर का ताज समझोगे तो अल्लाह तुम्हें बहुत सारे ताज पहनाएगा जिंदगी में। और वो बात मैंने अपने पल्ले बांधी। मेरी बीवी मेरे सर का ताज है, मेरी बीवी मेरी इज्जत है, मेरी बीवी मेरे पे बर्डन नहीं है, ये एक प्रिविलेज है। ये मेरे लिए एक ऑनर की बात है कि मैं एक ऐसे खानदान का आदमी हूँ, जहाँ पर अगर मैं सुबह को दफ्तर जा रहा हूँ, तो मेरी बीवी सूरे यानी कि ना आयतल कुर्सी फूँक कर मुझे भेजती है। अगर कोई बच्चा बाहर जा रहा है, तो वो आयतल कुर्सी, उसका असर क्या पड़ रहा है कि मेरी तीनों बेटियाँ हर वक़्त जब भी गाड़ी में बैठती हैं, वो आयतल कुर्सी पढ़ती हैं। अब्बू आए हैं, आयतल कुर्सी पढ़नी है, जा रहे हैं नहीं करनी। फैशन, हर चीज़ आप लोगों का हक है। अल्लाह ताला खूबसूरती को पसंद करता है। अल्लाह ताला तो खुद जमाल है, अल्लाह ताला तो खुद जमील है, तो वो पसंद करता है। मगर ज़रूरत इस बात की है कि हम इस्लाम को सिर्फ़ एक नहीं, वो एक एग्ज़ाम्पल देने के लिए नहीं, ये मेल शोविनिस्ट सोसाइटी नहीं है। ये बैरियर तो आज से 1400-1500 साल पहले हमारे प्यारे नबी अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने तोड़ दिया था। तो हम अब उसको क्यों रखें? ये जो दूसरी बातें हैं कि ये पाँव की जूती है, ये इंफीरियर है, मर्द का अपर हैंड होता है, कोई नहीं अपर हैंड होता। मैं आज आपसे एक स्पेशल बात बताऊँ, मेरी बीवी ने जब भी मुझे किसी काम से मना किया है ना, और वो मैंने कर लिया है, वो गलत ही हुआ है। अल्लाह ताला ने औरत को कुछ सेंसर दिए हुए होते हैं जो पहचान जाती है, तो बात कभी-कभार सुन लेनी चाहिए। आखिर में आप लोगों का बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया। 2-2 लफ्ज़, वो जो हमारी बहन जिसकी इज़्ज़त दरी, अस्मत दरी हुई है, आप उसके लिए क्या पैगाम देंगी कि स्टे स्ट्रॉन्ग, ये कुछ नहीं, ये अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से वो हो गया है। अब सुना ये है कि वो बड़ी खुशी हुई मुझे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान ने कि उन्होंने गैग ऑर्डर दे दिया है कि आप उसका या उसकी फैमिली का ज़िक्र नहीं कर सकते। आप तसव्वुर करें, यकीन माने मेरे दोस्त हैं तौफीक भट्ट साहब, मैंने उनको रोते देखा है इंटरव्यू देते कि आज, और मैं भी ये बात कहता हूँ, मैं आज अपने पाकिस्तानी मर्द और मुसलमान मर्द होने पे शर्मिंदा हूँ। मैं बहुत शर्मिंदा हूँ कि मैं वहाँ पर मौजूद नहीं था उसकी मदद करने के लिए। क्या ही अच्छा होता कि वो 2 आदमी जो आए, वो आकर उसकी मदद करते, रादर के उसकी इज़्ज़त लूट ली। वो बाथरूम में बैठी है और वो अपना यानी कि ना जिस्म को रगड़-रगड़ के धो रही है और पानी गिरा रही है कि मैं नापाक हो गई। इमेजिन करें कि जिसकी हालत ये होगी। आखिरी कपल ऑफ वर्ड्स फ्रॉम यू साइमा फॉर दैट लेडी एंड फॉर अस मेन हू आर वी आर वेरी वीक। मैं शर्मिंदा हूँ आप तमाम ख़वातीन से, दुनिया की तमाम ख़वातीन से कि वी फेल्ड टू प्रोटेक्ट यू। इरशाद।
I would, first of all, that whatever she is going through, understand that, and that we should basically, keep her in our prayers, and whatever support she needs from society, from people, we should be there for her. And we hope that she gets
Not to shame her, not to shame her.
not to
If you
shame her
ever
at
find
all.
out,
Absolutely, and that we hope for her to have justice. Basically, she is not at fault, and she is not the one that needs to worry about this kind of thing. The justice, whoever is dirty or needs to clean themselves are those horrible men. They are the ones that are dirty. They are the ones that need to cleanse their mind and cleanse themselves. She is not the one that did something wrong, and we have to stop shaming her completely.
थैंक यू वेरी मच अनिला आप आखिर में क्या कहेंगी अलीना
I think she has gotten disconnected.
No, she's okay. Just a minute. I think she's back. जी, अलीना. आखिरी पैगाम हमारी उस बहन के लिए आपने मेरी बात सुनी ली होगी.
जी.
मैं एज आपने डिस्कनेक्ट होते मैंने कहा कि एज अ मैन मेरे बहुत सारे दोस्त मैंने तौफीक भट्ट साहब का जिक्र किया मैंने उनको रोते देखा है और वो इतना मजबूत आदमी है कि जिसकी इंतहा नहीं पढ़ा लिखा प्रोफेसर है कि हम being a man being a Burhan Khan I failed to take a responsibility or to fulfill my responsibility to vulnerable mother who was in a problem. Instead of helping her, there are my kind men, those animals, they whatever they आपका उस खातून के लिए क्या पैगाम है और दूसरे मर्दों के लिए quickly we have only 30 seconds.
तो मेरा ये पैगाम है कि whatever has happened, there's no words to condemn it. लेकिन may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal her soul and help her move on with her life. क्योंकि उनके ये इस तरह के क्राइम्स होते रहते हैं लेकिन उनके बच्चों के सामने ये सब कुछ हुआ है which will scar those poor souls for the rest of their lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them and heal their souls. दूसरा बात ये कि जहाँ तक में पेट्रियार्चिकल सोसाइटी की बात है हमारी गवर्नमेंट को ऐसे स्टेप्स लेने चाहिए to secure both the genders in their stats. स्पेशली फीमेल क्योंकि इस तरह के बहुत ज्यादा क्राइम अब बढ़ता चला जा रहा है और इसका सबसे बड़ा मसला जो मैंने बहुत ज्यादा फील किया वो ये है कि देयर इज लॉट्स ऑफ foul media that is exposed the children and the youth are exposed that is just putting filth in their minds there's no restraint there's no censorship there that can control it like हम लोगों के यहाँ पे parental controls हैं censorship है we can control things for our youth and for our children even घर में भी as Saima could agree with me as a mother you can put parental control and you could control things for your children कि जो आपके बच्चों के लिए safe हो देखने के लिए लेकिन वो वहाँ पे नहीं है so our government should take steps to put control on it. You just don't shut out YouTube because YouTube पे आप educational stuff भी दे सकते but you need to put censorship and all those precautionary measures taken so that you can protect the mind of those young kids rather than be productive. You go into the negative side and just put filth in your mind and that comes into this kind of stuff. वो फिर aggression जो है वो इस तरह से बाहर निकलता है कि जब आपको कोई जगह मिलती है you exploit that power, you exploit that strength in you और आप एक मजलूम बंदे पे जो आपको फाइट नहीं कर सकता है आप उसके ऊपर अपना जुल्म अपना जो पावर है जो अपनी जवानी की जो पावर आप उस पर निकाल रहे हो which is wrong which is ethically wrong which is morally wrong which is in any stance it is inhumane.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much, Sadaf, Saima, and Alina. आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया. I'm really thankful. I have no words to express my gratitude. Thank you. Inshallah Ta'ala, in the future, we'll do some other this kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us, and especially thank you for an all-woman panel that you invited because that's usually very rare. So, alhamdulillah, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure talking with all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we have better approach with all of these things, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you.